Hey there, I am going to show you how I prepare vegetables for my consumption when I'm staying in a residence inn or Airbnb or Vrbo. And I'm using the items that I carry with me in my travel kitchen as well as what's supplemented here in the kitchen that is kind of provided for the stay. I am using, and all my vegetables are clean. They're already kind of trimmed. I have broccoli. I ate the stalks yesterday in my salad, as well as some chopped cabbage. I am also using, because I cut up celery, I'm actually using this part of the celery because it offers some really great flavor profiles. And then I am going to be using a couple of pieces of cut carrot that I did yesterday just for color. And I'm going to show you, since they do not provide a roasting pan, I think that's the biggest challenge when you're staying in a residence inn or an Airbnb, depending on, I actually do have a full stove with an oven, but there's no pan provided for that. There's not even a broiling pan in the drawer. So I do travel with some real basics in this regard, and I always carry parchment paper with me. So I've got a couple different types of parchment paper in here, as well as some pieces of aluminum foil. And that's what's going to give my roasting pan that I'm going to make some structure. So first of all, I have a packet of ghee, and you can buy these in individual packs. Let's see if you can see that. So you can actually buy the ghee in individual packets. And what I'm doing with this, because I can travel with this since it's solid, I'm going to actually put it on the stove into a pot of water, warm water, so that it will actually melt the ghee, and then I can use it as my cooking oil for these roasted vegetables. And I'll probably only use, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of this and pour it over the vegetables and kind of zhuzh them and get them coated a little bit so that they'll cook more nicely. Sometimes I also use vegetable broth. Right now, I'm okay to use a little bit of this extra fat in my diet. Anyway, so I hear my water. Let me put this in my warm water. But I'm just gonna set this down in here, and it will actually melt rather quickly. They don't have tongs, but I do have my travel chopsticks in part of my travel kitchen. And I have done another video on my travel kitchen, and that should be listed under my videos on this channel. Now, I'm going to chop up some vegetables here, so I'm going to kind of move the camera angle so you can kind of see my setup. Another thing to mention, the reason I stay in residence inns or Vrbos when I'm traveling, I normally travel carry-on only, so I can't travel with a knife. And that's another reason for staying in either a facility or a private home that has a fully equipped kitchen, is usually how it's listed. That way I have a knife and actually can do my own cooking and meal prep. So I love to save these ends of the celery, in this case the tops, I guess, but it imparts such a wonderful flavor. And I think, when you're cooking kind of on the road, one of the things that you're missing is not having a home kitchen where you have access to all of your spices and all of those delicious things that you normally use. And I usually make up a kind of a spice mixture, that's what this is, of seasoning, which usually includes smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, and then, sea salt or Celtic salt, and then whatever other spices that I happen to have on hand that I'm in the mood to use, which is nice, but it still isn't, you don't have all of your wonderful umami flavorings. So this just kind of offers that. should be enough for that. I'm gonna go ahead and check on my ghee. It's almost melted. Oh, it's liquid. Okay, good deal. Yeah, that will work. Okay. So the main thing with a lot of this kind of little stuff, especially leafy things, is that it needs to kind of be coated. And like I said, I could also do this with a vegetable broth, but in this case, I should be okay with my diet to be able to allow for this little bit of extra fat that I'm including here. But when you add the fat to kind of these thinner, leafier things, they do cook nicely and roast nicely, most importantly. I'm going to use a little bit more of that. And I'll save the rest for the broccoli. So, okay, my trash. Oh, let me do the carrots while I'm thinking about it. So I'm really using these pieces of carrot more or less for color. You can see my knife is really not the best quality, but it's okay because it is what it is. And I'm happy that I have a knife at all. So, and I like roasting vegetables. I will keep, like I have a cut up celery and I also have some cut up carrot, additional carrot in the refrigerator. But roasting the vegetables gives you a little bit of different variety. So even though it's the same vegetable, it just has a nice taste, you know, instead of having to constantly eat the same things. All right, moving on right along here. So I usually cut the broccoli pieces off, so I almost make them have a longer stalk instead of just chopping it into little tiny pieces. I guess I prefer this to eat. And you'll notice I'm using my little tiny cutting board that I travel with, because even though they do provide what they consider a cutting board, it's actually a piece of glass, and that dulls the knife even further. So I don't use the piece of glass cutting board that they provide. I prefer my cutting board. This one does happen to be BPA free and all of that, so there's no transfer of chemicals. And anyway, I'm comfortable using this and have traveled with it for quite a while. Again, I actually usually put the cutting board in with my aluminum foil and my parchment paper, so actually it's very compact and works really well. I do some pre-planning because you kind of have to, but at the same time, there's a lot that I'm doing that I have to kind of do. It's a one-shot deal. Yep, I am reaching capacity on my veg in this bowl. This is the largest bowl that was here, so all right, I'm almost there. Okay, now I will use the rest of the ghee. So when I am planning to travel, I do try to kind of pre-plan my meals based on the grocery store that might be in the area. You know, sometimes it's hit or miss. I know when I went to Boston, I was just relying on more of an ethnic grocery store that was across the street. So I really had no idea what I would be able to find there. But kind of pre-planning ahead of time allows me to have an idea of maybe what condiments I need to bring with me, or maybe how many packages of ghee, or I also sometimes use vegetable broth, like how much vegetable broth will I be using. All right, so here, now these are those pre-cut sheets of aluminum foil, and what's really great about these is that obviously they're already cut, they're the right size, and they're easy to kind of stack up. I also think this is thinner than regular aluminum foil, and these are just those, you buy a box of these at the food service. And I'm gonna try putting 2 of these together, I think, and then I'm gonna plan to actually cook my vegetables in 2 batches. So the way you put this together, now I do not cook on aluminum foil directly. What I'm going to do is line this with the parchment paper. And the reason is just because I don't want to consume anything that's touching the metals that could end up in my body or in my brain. So I prefer to do this as cleanly as possible. So I'm going to fold this a couple of times in the middle as thinly as possible, because what I'm trying to do is have as much aluminum foil as possible. And you might say, well, if you don't want to have the metals, then why are you even cooking with aluminum foil? And that is because we don't have a tray. And what I'm doing is actually kind of creating a tray with the aluminum foil and the parchment paper. With that in mind, you'll notice that it just gives both the aluminum foil and the parchment paper just a little bit more heft, so that it makes a little tray. Okay, so now I'm going to do this one more time. Kind of fold those edges over nicely. And it actually, if you were using vegetable broth, the way I've created this is that you're not using obviously a quantity of broth, but it would actually enable you to, it has an area where some of that liquid would go to. And most of that, if you just use it a little bit, most of that evaporates off in the roasting process. Anyway, well, now I'm not going to actually put the vegetables in this and then carry it to the oven, because obviously that could be problematic. There does happen to be a large pot in what they've given me, but it's like a stock pot, so it's not appropriate for roasting in the oven. What I will do though is this is what I'll use to be able to actually get my quote-unquote roasting pan out of the oven. I have my preheated oven, and I'm going to use my first batch of vegetables, which will probably be the broccoli, and it will end up getting kind of roasted by itself because of the fact that my pan is, quote-unquote pan, is not very large. But there's plenty of room for the broccoli. And honestly, as the broccoli starts to cook down, I may actually add in some of the other vegetables. So especially the things that take longer to cook, like carrots and the broccoli, I'll put that in first. But the carrots just add some nice color. I think that's the main thing. When you're eating on the road, it's important that your food not only tastes delicious, but is still nutritious, but also pleasing to the eye. And then this is my seasoning that I typically make up, that has the smoked paprika and the sea salt, onion powder, garlic, and it's about equal parts. There's really no recipe, but it's always really delicious, and it just imparts some nice umami flavors especially with the onion powder and the smoked paprika. Actually, it looks like I have a little bit of hot pepper flakes in there as well. And then the one last thing, I forgot to add this, is I will squeeze a little bit of lemon on this. It just adds some freshness and a little bit of zing. And hopefully there won't be too many seeds. If not, a roasted seed or two won't be bad. And there we go. That also adds a little bit of liquid for the cooking process that kind of helps steam everything. And I'm gonna move these guys off of the edge. Kind of creates a nice little steam pyramid, and we'll come back shortly and see how this is doing. So they look really great, actually. And notice how perfectly my little pan has held up, my roasting pan in quotes. So I'm just gonna kind of turn this over a little bit, and now I'm going to add the remainder of the vegetables to this. And this is going to cook down a lot and very quickly because of the kind of leafy greens of the celery stalks and the shaved cabbage. So this will really cook down really nicely and pretty quickly. It's been another 20 minutes and look how beautiful. I know the lighting is not great right here, but oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. This is actually about 3 servings of veggies or so for me. And it will actually, I can even use some of this in salad. I especially like the roasted broccoli in the salad. So this is going to be really delicious. Wonderful. And now for the moment of truth, let me show you how I get this out of the oven using this lid. I think I showed you this earlier, so I'm going to use this nice lid. So this is what I do. And you can even do this with another, sometimes they'll provide a frying pan. There's really nothing in this Residence Inn. It's been kind of a challenge. So I just kind of carefully work it off of the oven rack. And the vegetables will actually kind of continue cooking, which is kind of nice. They'll a little bit just like meat once you let it rest for a couple more minutes. So, but I feel like overall this is really the perfect consistency, and it's not too mushy. It still has a little bit of crunch to it, but that's how I roast vegetables in a homemade pan that I can travel and take with me pretty much anywhere I go. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you gleaned something from this that may be useful for you in your travel. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.